Hi guys, it's Davin here at brewbitz.com. Behind the camera as usual we've got James. Hello James. Today then I thought we would brew up a cider kit, and this one is a little bit more in depth and it's a big heavy box. It's a festival cider kit and it will brew us up to 7.2%. So it's a good reason why it's a heavy box, because inside we have got, most importantly our instructions, some priming sugar. A kilo of sugar, another kilo of sugar, we've got some oak chips, we've got some dried apple, and we've got some extra sachets. We've got a sachet of flavouring, we've got a sachet of sweetener, sachet of yeast, and a sachet of cider enzyme. More importantly, we've got a big pouch of apple juice. So, what do we get brewing? So down here in my sterilised bucket, I have got my sterilised spoon and my sterilised thermometer. We'll be using that in a moment. So what we need to do now is we need to take our bag of dried apple. That looks lovely, doesn't it? And in it all goes. Along with that, we now need to add our oak chips. Lovely and oaky, and we need to add both bags of big bags of sugar, that is, the ones that they're calling dextrose, and just in that goes as well. Dee-dee. Beautiful. Now to that, oh, I forgot my jug. I'm coming back. My jug. We need to add 4 litres of boiling water. And I've just finished boiling the kettle. And there's litre number 1. So that's our 4 litres of boiling water added, and we now need to give it a really good stir. And those oak chips, wow, they are really giving some nose to this cider. So the next thing we need to add to our bucket is our bag of concentrated apple juice. To give that a good stir as well. You will find you've got quite a bit of apple concentrate still left in the bottom of your pouch. So all I've done is just add a little bit of the boiling water, not very much, fold it down a couple of times, give it a good shake, and that will help us get rid, or make sure we get all of the lovely concentrate as possible. So now we've given it a good stir, we need to check the temperature. And so with my thermometer, I'm just going to lower it in, and the temperature needs to be below 55 degrees. If it's above 55, you're going to leave it for a few more minutes to cool down. But mine here is looking like it's coming out in about 46. So, because of that, we can now add our little sachet of cider enzyme. And in this goes a little white powder. I'm just going to sprinkle it on, and then we're going to give that a good stir in as well. Lovely. The lid now goes on, and we leave it for 2 hours. It's had 2 hours now in the bucket for the enzymes to do all of its work, and for all the flavours to start to mingle. And now we need to bring it up to 23 litres pretty much 5 gallons with cold water. So now we've topped it up to 23 litres. I'm just going to mix it all up so all our flavours, all our liquids are all combined into one beautiful, nice, apple-y, ready to ferment liquid. So now we've stirred that in, I'm going to take our sachet of cider sweetener. Pop that on top. Come on in, James. You'll see it's literally only this tiniest amount here, nothing to it. Sort this all out. And then I'm going to take our sachet of yeast and yeast nutrient. I'm going to give this a quick stir in first of all. Now I'm going to add a sachet of yeast and yeast nutrient and just sprinkle this over the top like that. Okay, and that'll allow it to hydrate. I've taken a sample in my trial jar, and with my hydrometer I can see that the specific gravity is coming out at 1.060. So that goes back in. Come on in, James, because I've sprinkled the yeast on a few minutes ago and I've allowed it a couple of minutes just to hydrate, and now it means that when we go to stir it in, it stirs in a lot easier. So give it a good stir so the yeast all combines all the way through as well. Okay, now then, we take our lid, the lid goes on, put it down in a couple of places so it leaves a little bit of space for the carbon dioxide to escape as it ferments. And this is now going to go into my warm cupboard at about 20 degrees for 5 to 7 days until fermentation is complete. And then what we'll do is we'll take a hydrometer reading over a couple of days to make sure it's finished, and then we'll go on to bottling and barreling. The festival cider has been sat in my warm cupboard now for a week, 7 days. And over the last couple of days I've been taking a reading with my hydrometer and my trial jar, and it's coming out at 0.998 both times. So we now know it's ready to move on to the next steps. Now, on their instructions in the cider kit, I'm going to go slightly off instruction now, because in the bottom of the bucket here is a lot of sediment. I don't know if you can just see this line at the bottom. They want me right now to add a sachet of flavouring and stir it all up. Well, I don't really want to do that. I'm going to do it in a slightly different way. So what I've got is I've got my simple siphon, and I've also got a little bag, and my little bag goes over the end like this, and we just tie it on. Now, easier said than done, because I'm using multiple hands, because I've already sterilised my siphon and I don't want to get my siphon unsterilised. So when we open the top up, you'll see why I'm doing this, and you'll see that there's lots of the apple pieces. They've all rehydrated and they've all floated to the surface. If I didn't put this little bag on, it's going to make my life a lot more difficult, and because all those little bits are going to get bunged up in the tube. So all I'm going to do now is pop it in, give a good suck, and I'm going to transfer it into my sterilised bucket. Now, one other thing you will need when you're doing this, because this does take a little bit of time, is something to keep you going. So you can see everything that we've left behind, and we've left quite a lot of sediment. Okay, I know there's a little bit of liquid in there, but we're not going to get everything anyway. However, we are left now with a nice liquid free of apple bits and free of sediment, and that's going to help us clear it in our buckets and our barrels and leave a lot less sediment. Now, back to the instructions. It says we need to take our apple flavouring sachet and we need to cut it off Oh, wow. Whoa, okay. That's strong. In it goes. Make sure we get it all. And now we're going to give it a good stir. Lovely. The lid goes back on. And now we leave it for 24 hours. We've now got two main options. We can look at putting our cider into a barrel, or we could look at putting it into a bottle. And we've got various different bottles. We've got plastic screw top PET bottles. We've got little old stubbies. We've got swing top bottles. The major rule though, if you're going to use a bottle, is it's got to be a pressure rated bottle. It needs to either held a carbonated drink before or be suitable for carbonated drinks. Putting something like this in a wine bottle or any other bottle that's not set up for carbonated drinks, you will end up with a lot of fizzy cider everywhere, and trust me, it makes a mess. So, without further ado, into our cider. Come back to me, James. Because before we do this, we've got a sachet of priming sugar to add. So our cider has been sat for another 24 hours, and we've already taken the fruit and everything else away. And I'm going to go off instructions a bit here as well, because the instructions say if you're putting it into bottles, you should add a bit of a teaspoon into each bottle. However, I find this method a lot easier. I'm going to take my priming sugar and I'm going to pour it into my cider, like so. I'm going to take my sterilised spoon, I'm going to give it a good stir. Make sure all that sugar's fully dissolved. The reason I do it this way is so that I now know every single bottle has got exactly the same amount of sugar for priming in it. Also, it means you aren't faffing around with teaspoons trying to get the sugar into the bottle and spilling loads of sugar everywhere. Anyway, so I'm going to fill some bottles up, and down below I've got a couple of bottles on a table to show you, and I'm also going to use my simple siphon. On the end I've got my little tap. That's going to help for us to control the flow. So in goes our siphon, and we're going to give a good suck, and we're going to get our juices flowing. So try and run it down the side of the glass like that, and we're going to bring it up to about the top of my finger here, because we're going to need a little bit of an air gap so that a secondary fermentation can happen inside the bottle. Right, perfect. And secondary fermentation, that's where the remaining yeast in the cider is going to turn the sugar that we've just put in into a little bit more alcohol, but more importantly, it's going to turn it into carbon dioxide. And that's going to dissolve into our cider and make it nice and fizzy. So I finished filling my bottles. All I'm going to do is pop the top on, depending on what sort of bottle you're using. And of course, you might have to put a screw cap on, or you might have to use a capper. But now that's on, that's now going to go into my warm cupboard with all the other bottles, and it's going to be in there for a few days, 3-4 days, and that's going to allow the secondary fermentation to occur and create some lovely fizzy cider. After I take it out of my warm cupboard, I'm going to put it somewhere nice and cool for 2 to 3 weeks, and that's going to allow it to clear and the sediment to settle at the bottom. If you can leave it a little bit longer, brilliant. What you're going to do, pop it in the fridge, chill it, and have a nice pint of cider. The other part of the cider is going to go into my pressure barrel here. That's been sterilised as well, and with my simple siphon, again, I'm just going to start the flow and let it pour in and top up. Again, once that's filled up, I'm going to pop the top back on, make it nice and secure, and that's going to go back into my warm cupboard again for about 3 days for the secondary fermentation to occur. Now in the barrel here, it's not going to become fizzy, but what that secondary fermentation is going to do is create a carbon dioxide barrier above the cider, which is going to help prevent any nasties and bugs, bacteria from getting into the cider and causing it to go off. But also what that's going to do is when we turn the tap on, it's going to push the cider out and give us a good flow. So once it's been in the warm cupboard for about another 2-3 days, I'm going to take it out, I'm going to put it somewhere cool for about two weeks to a month, and that's going to allow it to clear and to condition, and then you'll be pulling off some lovely pints of lovely cider. You've just watched me brew a Festival Oaked Apple Cider kit from the Festival range, and if you want to too, you can find these at brewbitz.com.